Hello and welcome to SorWil Solutions, where we talk about what's going on in our community. Today we have a very special guest. Super excited to introduce Jack Curtis, chairman of the United Kansas Party. I tell you what, I have gotten more questions about what is United Kansas since I've run. What are they doing? Who are they? Why should people become members? And so when I told people I've got Jack Curtis coming on my podcast, they're like, first they're like, who? After
Yeah,
that,
that's fair.
and I told them who you were,
hmm
they're like, man, I can't wait to catch that episode. So let's just get into it. Jack, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Well, hey, let me start by saying it is awesome to be here. It is so excited to be here in Leavenworth County, where we had not just one, but two great candidates run for local office. Local office really is the backbone of communities and being able to make everything a little bit better for folks. So this is just stellar getting to be here. So a little bit about myself. Well, I am a K-State graduate, not originally from
We'll forgive you
Kansas.
for that.
Sure.
This is a KU broadcast.
Sure. um, Not originally from Kansas. Grew up military. Both my parents served as
Army brat.
officers. Yep, Army brat. That's correct. And then Dad got the opportunity to retire here out of Fort Leavenworth. So I am local to the Lansing side of
Okay.
the city division line. Had, I won't say 4 great years, 3 great years, one not so great year at K-State. Ended up with a degree in political science,
Okay.
and that kind of took me off from there. My interest in politics and service to a community really started in high school with my exposure to the American Legion Boys State of Kansas, which
Okay.
is a summer program designed for, at the time, it was rising high school seniors, so young men between their junior and senior year of high school, to experience government and the American form of government at the local, county, and state level. And that
Okay.
was where I not only got an appreciation for politics that would go on to my undergrad degree, but local politics. Every time you think about politics and what's going on with the country, you think about national, but folks don't necessarily understand that the most change is affected at the local level. That's where your taxes are a lot of times come into play, a mill levy and what the heck that is and
Sure.
how it affects everybody, and just so much more opportunity for growth and so much more opportunity for folks to get involved.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I heard about United Kansas as I was running for county commissioner.
hmm
It was Sherry Grogan that actually brought it up and suggested that this may be an opportunity for me where I felt a little bit disgruntled as a traditional Republican.
hmm
I also often call myself a Reagan Republican, and didn't really feel like I fit into the group here. And she said I should really explore this. And in talking with Aaron and you, I was amazed at the opportunity this was, because this is really an opportunity for those of us who are disgruntled from the right and from the left
hmm
to find a platform for our voice. Can you tell us a little bit of the history of United Kansas? How did it start? I know there's some discussion about fusion voting. I know there's people out here asking me that question all the time. So
Sure.
I'll let an expert explain it.
Absolutely. So, United Kansas got started. We're coming up on kind of 2 years of this idea. Aaron Estabrook, who was a former city councilman out of Manhattan, ran for school board. He was like the third highest elected independent candidate in Kansas history. Really, really good dude. Uh, we were just sitting around talking about what can be done to make the current system better, because it's no secret, the right has gone further right, the left has gone further left, and there's this opening gap in the middle for something, anything, and folks just feel like they are screaming out for an alternative option, and I think that's what we're seeing a lot of. But so United Kansas came out of the idea of, what if a political party put the state first? So we're not interested in anything at the national level. We are Kansas, 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 and what's going to do the best for our state, what's going to do the best for our communities, and what's going to make people want to live in this great state. Growing up military, I got the opportunity to live kind of all over the Southland, military installations, overseas for a little bit, and there's just something so unique about Kansas, something so, I know it sounds corny, but pleasant, something so homely about it. It's why we wanted to retire here. It's why Dad wanted to retire here. It's why I
Mhm.
graduated high school and went to college out here. And so looking for some way to give back to this community, to give back to the state. So with that, we put together United Kansas, and then that core idea that we're looking at is something called fusion voting. Now, fusion voting is this really cool way of voting that was everywhere across the U.S. about 100 years ago, and then different states got rid of it or passed legislation to make it significantly harder. Um, for one reason or another, one party or another. It's not like it was sweeping. Republicans got rid of it, Democrats got rid of it. It was both sides of the aisle. And what it basically comes down to is allowing the best candidate for your party to be nominated with the other parties. So if we've got someone who we absolutely love, they're going to put Kansas first, they're going to put their community first, and they're not just going to let national politics come through and start hammering them on things. They would be able to run as a Republican, as a Democrat, as a member of the traditional two-party system, and be co-nominated by United Kansas. So this means, being a Reagan era Republican that you said you were, if you had stayed with the Republican Party and then done fusion with United Kansas, the ballot would have shown Joe Republican, Joe United Kansas, and then had you had a challenger out here in Leavenworth County, we'll say Susie is a Democrat. The main benefit from that, A, we're avoiding the traditional spoiler argument. Folks think of third parties, they think of Ross Perot, and they think of
Sure.
just throwing their vote away and getting Clinton
You and I
elected.
had that conversation just last night.
Absolutely, that's right. So it avoids that spoiler argument. It allows us to identify the best person for the job. Um, and it allows folks an opportunity to vote for someone regardless of if they're Republican or Democrat, because fundamentally, you have folks who will not vote for someone regardless of the ideas that they have because of that little R or little D next to their name.
Sure.
And it's unfortunate because, no one side has monopoly of great ideas. And the current political climate is just so toxic to anyone willing to stand up and say, hey, there are some good ideas on both sides. There's a lot of terrible ideas on both sides.
Sure.
There is a lot of bad ideas, but there's a fair number of good ones. But even if you had a Republican come out and say, there are a couple of really good Democrat ideas, they'd be hung up by their toes in the street,
Sure.
and no one would allow that to happen. So this is our way of putting forth an idea to work around it. We're certainly not going to necessarily have fusion in every election. We'd love to see it in every seat, but there are just going to be some races where fusion doesn't make sense because they're both great candidates, or maybe they're less than great candidates. And that's an instance where we love having our homegrown candidates, just like yourself and Sherry.
I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Um, what is the difference between fusion votings, or how does it combat with the sour grapes law that Kansas apparently has? This is something that somebody, when I told them about fusion voting, they brought up the sour grapes law. How do those intertwine or combat each other or whatever? I mean,
Mhm.
how is that different?
Sure. So fusion, when done properly, just allows for more options and more voice with electing an individual. It's the opportunity to look at, how many folks in Leavenworth County being registered Democrat voted one way, how many in um, Leavenworth County voted registered Republican voted the other way, and then that growing group in the middle allowing them to vote and really come forward with it. Uh, One of the biggest numbers that we look at when talking about fusion voting in United Kansas, Kansas Speaks, which is a public opinion survey put out by the
Hmm.
Docking Institute at Fort Hays State University, does this big questionnaire every year. We just got the results for 2024 that we're still looking at, but from 2023, it identified individuals who were independent and then maybe independent lean left, independent lean right. 49.5% of Kansas, 50%, half of all folks, are not just in the Republican or the Democrat camp. And if we look at the strict numbers, what's left, right, and independent, independent is the second party. Democrats are the third party in this state. And so it comes down to that opportunity for folks to be able to ditch the traditional labels. Folks who would never in a million, might never in a million years have listened to you if you were a Republican, and be able to hear what you're saying, hear what your policies are, what our policies are as United Kansas, and what's going to be best for the state.
That's awesome. One of the things that I can absolutely say is, of the thousands of doors, and I say thousands. I don't know exactly how many it was that I walked.
I'm sure it felt like it.
It certainly did, and many exhausting nights. But nobody ever slammed the door in my face simply because I
Mhm.
said I was a United Kansas member. I had one door slam, and I don't think that guy wanted to talk to about politics at all.
That's fair.
But nobody slammed. And I talked to friends who are Democrats who ran who said the
Mhm.
minute they said they were Democrat, the door slammed in their face.
Mhm.
So people are open to this idea and this idea that there is potentially a third party. One of the things that came up during this election that got a lot of news was the No Labels Party. Can you talk about
Mhm.
how we're a little bit different than that?
Absolutely. So, No Labels Kansas had a number of issues that we won't dive into
Sure.
specifically, but No Labels as a whole, as an idea, they used a lot of the same research that we did. A number of Pew surveys that talked about, again, the right's gotten further right, the left's gotten further left, or excuse me, the left's gotten further left, and folks are looking for something just kind of left out in the middle. But their approach to it was top down. They sought ballot access at the national level, working from state to state, trying to get established. Gosh, I can't even remember who they had running as their presidential ticket, or who they were even talking to about it. I think the rumors were JFK at one point, or RFK, excuse me, at one point. But they took that top down approach, and while I think everybody wanted a little more options in the most recent presidential election,
Sure.
it's just not sustainable. And I think that's what we've seen, because at a state level, they really don't have anything. United Kansas is homegrown here in Kansas. It's Kansas focused, it's grassroots, and our goal is making a better state.
One of the things and the questions that I get asked a lot as I talk about United Kansas, and we've got a Facebook page with over 200 followers.
Hmm.
Um, I think I talked to a number of people who said they're registered to use United Kansas.
That's
You
awesome.
know, how what is our staying power? How can we say that we're going to be around next year? That we're not just going to be a fly by night party?
Sure. The core, so our staying power is our true north, our guiding compass, our second star on the left is Kansas. The state isn't going anywhere. Kansas residents aren't going anywhere. And so our goal, our motivation, our everything is what's best for the state. We're not lining anybody's pocketbooks. Our goal is not how many chairs and committees we can get elected to in either of the state houses. It is entirely what's going to be best for your average Kansan. What's going to promote business development? What's going to help our farmers? What's going to ease the burden that taxes is currently putting on everybody? I spent an extra $600 this year just living in my house compared to last year because of a property tax increase. And I don't know if I can tell you what extra benefit I got out of it. Now, I live in Shawnee County right now,
Mhm.
and Topeka has its ups and downs and everything going on with it. But there has got to be a better way of doing things, and United Kansas, is trying to figure that out for Kansas.
One of the things that I'd heard during my campaign, and I don't want to talk about who told me and who said what,
Sure.
was that when and this was specifically with LAVTR, the local ad valorem tax, is that
Hmm.
one of the candidates had voted against it multiple times, and then they ran at the local level, and now they were raising their arms saying, "What happened? Where'd it go?" And when asked about it, didn't
Hmm.
realize he voted against it, didn't have any idea what it was. He said they were
Hmm.
given a vote sheet and told how to vote
Hmm.
from I don't know from whom.
Hmm.
Um, uh, Obviously, big money is involved
Sure.
somewhere. How can we say that we never get to that position, that we will never allow anybody to control our votes, that our goal will only be to support what's best for Kansas?
Absolutely. So it comes down to everything that we're standing for, and everybody that we're working with. The benefit of being the third party like we are, of being Kansas focused, is that we get to be much choosier with everything. Like I said, we would love to run in every election from Atchison out to Dodge, Great Bend, um, all over this great state. But that's just not feasible at this point. Although we are working towards definitely getting more out there, more appearance, more applicability. But with that, our goal still is going to be what's best for Kansas. And we hope that anybody who is willing to donate to the cause and make sure that our politics is able to stay understands that it's Kansas first. It's what's best for the state. It's not what's best for our donors, but because our donors are Kansans, ultimately it is. Um, we understand needing to make sure that folks know what they're voting for. Folks need to have better proposals put forth to the system, and that's going to be what we stick for.
Interesting. Those are all great ideas, and
Hmm.
it's very interesting and exciting to see, at this opportunity that we have a party that is holding itself to accountability,
Hmm.
to virtue, and I really hope that's really what we end up getting
Absolutely.
next week, or is it this Thursday? There's an event. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this next coming week, we actually have two events going on. On the 3rd, myself and Aaron Estabrook, who is our party treasurer, are going to be participating in a radio show out in Manhattan, which is where Aaron's at. So super looking forward to that. I think it's with 1350. Uh, Forgive me, I think that's K-Man. And K-Man, if that's not right, I do apologize. And then on the 6th, so next Thursday, a week and 2 days, we're putting on a conference, or we are participating in a conference at Washburn School of Law. It's put on for the Center for Ballot Freedom, and we're talking about Kansas politics, we're talking about the history behind it, and we're going to be talking about fusion voting. It is going to be an awesome experience. It is open to as many folks as can show up and are interested in learning a little bit more. There is a sign up on all of our social media as well as on the Washburn School of Law page for anybody who wants to attend. It's just a quick little your name, your email, and whether or not you have a food allergy. It took me all of 15 seconds to get signed up. So
Okay,
we are
great.
super excited for everybody to be coming out and participating.
As we kind of get towards the middle of this, what are some of the views of the United Kansas and property tax?
Hmm.
I know we've talked about some different ideas in our last meeting
Hmm.
last week. Is there anything you can really go into on thoughts about how we can address the property tax issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's no secret that the current system isn't working.
Broken.
And property tax is an issue for all Kansans. Anybody who owns a home, wants to own a home, especially we see it with our elderly folks who are on a fixed income.
Hmm.
Because, like I said, if it's costing you $600 every year, $600 more every year, excuse me, to live in your house, you're going to be priced out of that before too long. It's just not sustainable. What we have been looking at and are going to be making our official statement on, pending when this is, once we drop this, if that might have come out, um, we're looking at what's known as a land value tax. And a huge benefit to this, we first off, we see it in other states already where it's
Such
tried
as,
and proven. Pennsylvania is
okay,
going to be the biggest one that comes to mind. But they don't look at what the structures are on it. It looks at the land, how much land you have, and what it's going to be zoned for. So it incentivizes folks to take that land that they have and develop it. It's great for farmers because it specifically looks at farmland and the value on that. It's great for property development because it encourages folks not to just sit on empty lots that aren't doing anything. Um, and it's going to be great for the state because it's incredibly easy to tune. If the state wants it to be revenue neutral, it can be revenue neutral. If the state wants it to be bumped up a little bit in order to fund various items such as our schools, this is a great opportunity for the state to make sure we are properly funding our schools because education is so important and we do believe in properly funded schools. So the land value tax is something that we are looking forward to being able to propose as part of United Kansas, of what we're looking forward to, and as an option that's going to make sure that everything in the state is taken care of without putting a squeeze on our residents.
that's awesome.
Hmm.
It's exciting, and after we talked about that, I kind of read more about the land value tax, and I think that is a interesting proposal
Hmm.
with some definitely some legs to it. One of the things that I had heard, and really that thrust me into my campaign, was I was doing IT work
Hmm.
for a gentleman, an older gentleman in the county, somebody I think felt like was a founder of this community, and he's
Definitely.
retired,
Hmm.
and he was talking, because as IT people, everybody vents to the IT person, even when you're
Yeah.
not expecting it.
Yeah.
Most people forget you're sitting there working as they're chit chatting.
Hmm.
But he was venting to me that He had just gotten his property tax, his home was paid off.
Mhm.
He bought it for, like $79,000.
Sure.
And now it's valued at like $350,000.
Mhm.
And he's going to be paying more than his mortgage was in property tax.
Wow.
And he's like, I'm either going to have to move or I'm going to sell it. I'm going to move into a retirement home. He just
Mhm.
didn't know what he was going to do.
Mhm.
And being idealistic, I thought, well, if I run for the county commission, I'm going to be able to impact that.
Mhm.
The truth is that even if I had gotten elected, there's only so much I can do.
Right.
It really is on the shoulders of our men and women in Topeka and what they're doing. And I don't understand why this is such a hard problem to
Mhm.
address. Why we can't help, everyday Kansans that are experiencing this,
Mhm.
and why this is taking so long.
Absolutely. It's, the story is heartbreaking because you never want to think of someone having to move out of their house that they grew up in, having to potentially shift in their community that they helped develop. And we owe it to our residents, we owe it to our Kansans to do better with government. There has to be an alternative, there has to be a better way. And that's what we're trying to find.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We're going to kind of shift now
Yep.
to kind of what's on your mind, and I'm going to actually kick this off. I'm going to make an announcement that I've been talking to very few people about.
Hmm.
I have been on had multiple guests suggest that I should run for city commission, and I am actually going to announce that today I will be filing to run for city commission in Leavenworth, Kansas. I know it's a nonpartisan position,
Hmm.
but hopefully I can get the support from the United Kansas Party.
Absolutely. We are so excited to see you running again. We definitely learned a lot of lessons and a lot of insight from especially yours and Sherry's run at this county level. And so, again, as you said, it is nonpartisan, but we are interested in trying to help and support in any way that we can, as outlined by Kansas state law.
Awesome.
Perfect.
What's on your mind?
Well, you running for city for city, absolutely. Definitely taking a look at what comes next as a party. We have a number of policy positions that we're looking at taking, not just the land value tax, but what's going to benefit Kansans in the long run. Hoping to identify a handful of those, put them out on our website, unitedkansas.com, that we have all of our social medias making the impact there. But aside from that, it's the weather. I sat outside on my front porch yesterday for the first time, and my gosh, what felt like months. And, there's still the small pile of snow from where it all shoveled and kind of
Mm,
got built up. But just being able to sit out there in the sunshine, it was 65 on my side of Topeka, but I know some folks it's 70.
yeah,
And just getting to relax and enjoy it with my dog was pretty
we got
awesome.
pretty close to 70 here, but it was
Yeah.
amazing. One other shout out I want to give. So normally during our podcast, we
Hmm.
try to highlight a nonprofit in the community. I'm highlighting today the Stronghold Food Pantry. They support our men and women in uniform with food
Awesome.
insecurity.
Excellent.
Monica Bass, who is the executive director,
Hmm.
won Nonprofit of the Year in the Chamber on Friday of last week. So I want to give a shout out to the hard work that she's doing in the community,
Hmm.
the help that she's providing to our men and women in service.
Hmm.
A reminder that just because they're in the military doesn't mean that they have the best pay,
Hmm.
and that some of them are struggling with food insecurity. And I had no idea before I visited how much of an issue that it really is.
Sure. No, absolutely. I've had all kinds of friends who enlisted in the military, either out of high school because they didn't know they needed a little direction in their life, which the military is absolutely great for. Folks who enlisted out of high school in order to pay for their college. And it is almost shocking to learn how much, especially our junior enlisted members of the military, the folks who, when you think of your average soldier, you're thinking of those folks. And to hear the stories about all of it and to know that that is something that plagues our military community, that is just so cool that they have that set up, especially here, Fort Leavenworth, right up the street. That is so cool that they're doing that.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on SorWil Solutions. Once again, Chairman Jack Curtis of the United Kansas Party. Hopefully, we'll have you on again. I know there's more to talk about, and this will generate some discussion. If you'd like to have your nonprofit sponsored or mentioned on our podcast, please let us know. Send us some swag. We're happy to talk about what everybody's doing out there and trying to support our community. Thanks again. Have a great week.